Here's the breaking news you need to hear. The royal family is tearing itself apart, the Middle East ceasefire is hanging by a thread, and behind closed doors at the White House, voices were raised and tempers flared during a heated conversation with Zelensky. Oh, and a head of lettuce just became part of British history. Stay with me, because this is the kind of day where reality outdoes fiction. I spent years inside a major newsroom, one you'd recognize instantly. I watched stories get bent, facts get filtered, and narratives get engineered to serve interests that had nothing to do with truth. I walked away from that machine. Now I work alone, answer to no one, and bring you what actually matters. If you value this kind of honest reporting, hit that like button and subscribe. And if you want to help keep this channel independent and free from corporate pressure, consider becoming a sponsor. It means more than you know. It keeps this operation running and ensures I can keep digging where others won't. Prince Andrew is sweating under the weight of a police investigation. That's how the tabloids are describing the latest development in this never-ending royal nightmare. London's Metropolitan Police is now examining claims that Andrew used his security detail to dig up personal information on his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. This allegedly happened just before the Daily Mail published that infamous photograph of their first meeting back in February 2011. Andrew, as always, denies everything, but on Friday, as you might remember, he announced he's giving up his titles, including the Duke of York. The pressure, it seems, finally got to him. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Daily Mail is reporting that King Charles himself issued an ultimatum to his brother: strip yourself of those titles or I'll do it for you. According to sources close to the palace, Andrew refused to budge at first, despite the mounting evidence linking him to convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein. That stubbornness apparently pushed the king to threaten decisive action if his brother didn't come to his senses. The Daily Mirror is calling this a scandal without end, and they're not wrong. According to their sources, it was the king's direct intervention that forced the family to cut Andrew loose. And the attempts to gather dirt on Giuffre, they're being described as disgraceful. The Metro goes even further, reporting that Giuffre's own family is now demanding Andrew be stripped of his title entirely. Their headline plays on the old nursery rhyme, the grand old Duke of York hinting at the Duke's downfall. Clever, dark, and absolutely fitting. The Times also leads with the police investigation into Andrew, but right next to it is another story that caught my eye. And honestly, it's almost too predictable. Bulgaria's interior minister has come out claiming that operatives connected to certain Eastern powers, along with far-left humanitarian organizations, are helping smugglers move people illegally into Europe. Of course, when something goes wrong in Europe, there's always someone ready to point the finger eastward. Whether it's true or convenient, that's the question nobody seems interested in asking. Now let's talk about the Middle East, because the fragile ceasefire that was supposed to bring some calm to Gaza is already cracking. The I newspaper leads with the headline, "Ceasefire Under Threat," describing how new airstrikes from Israel have shattered what little peace existed. The Israel Defense Forces say they targeted locations tied to violent groups in response to an attack in Rafah. Both sides are now blaming each other for breaking the truce. It's the same cycle, different day. If this kind of unfiltered breakdown is what you're here for, do me a favor, tap like, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed. This is how we build a community that doesn't settle for surface-level headlines. The Guardian describes frantic efforts to keep the ceasefire alive even as Israel launches fresh strikes on Gaza. According to their reporting, 2 soldiers from the IDF lost their lives in an attack by Hamas, and in response, dozens of people on the other side met a tragic end. It's a brutal back and forth with no winners, only casualties. And sitting right next to that grim update on the Guardian's front page is a story that feels almost surreal by comparison: a daring heist at the Louvre in Paris. Thieves broke into one of the most famous museums in the world and in just 7 minutes made off with priceless jewels, including a necklace once given by Napoleon to his wife. 7 minutes, that's all it took. While the world watches wars unfold in slow motion, a handful of criminals pulled off a Hollywood-style robbery in less time than it takes to brew a cup of coffee. The audacity is almost impressive if it weren't so infuriating. But here's where things get even more intense. And this is the story that should have everyone paying attention. The Financial Times is reporting on a tense, some would say explosive, meeting at the White House between Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The headline reads, "Trump warned Zelensky in meeting that Russia could destroy Ukraine, and according to sources who were present, the conversation escalated into shouting multiple times. Trump reportedly insisted that Ukraine give up the entire Donbas region to Russia. Just hand it over. Now, I'm not here to glorify or condemn Trump. But let's be clear about what this means. If these reports are accurate, the President of the United States raised his voice at a wartime leader whose country is fighting for survival and demanded territorial concessions that would effectively reward aggression. Whether you think that's pragmatic deal-making or a betrayal of principle, the fact that it happened behind closed doors and is only now leaking out tells you everything about how sensitive this moment really is. The Daily Telegraph picks up the same story and adds another layer. They're reporting that before Trump even sat down with Zelensky, he had a phone call with Vladimir Putin. So the sequencing here matters. Trump talks to Putin, then meets Zelensky, and during that meeting, witnesses say there was shouting, there was profanity, and at one point, Trump allegedly shoved aside maps that the Ukrainian side had brought to illustrate their position. The Telegraph's headline is blunt. Trump told Kyiv, accept the terms or you will be destroyed. Let that sink in for a moment. Accept the terms or you will be destroyed. That's not diplomacy. That's an ultimatum. And it's coming from the leader of the country that has been Ukraine's most powerful ally. Whether you agree with Trump's approach or not, this represents a seismic shift in tone. For over 2 years, the public message from Washington has been one of support, of standing with Ukraine for as long as it takes. But if this reporting is accurate, the private message is very different. It's transactional, it's impatient, and it's pressure at a level Zelensky has likely never experienced from a Western partner. Now, some will say this is Trump being a deal maker, trying to force an end to a conflict that's dragging on with no clear resolution in sight. Others will say it's abandoning a partner in their darkest hour, giving in to a stronger adversary because it's easier than continuing the fight. I'm not here to tell you which one is right. What I will tell you is this. If the United States steps back, if the support dries up or becomes conditional in ways that favor the aggressor, the consequences won't just be felt in Kyiv. They'll ripple across Europe, across NATO, and into every conflict zone where smaller nations are depending on the word of more powerful ones. The Telegraph also notes that after the Israeli strikes in Gaza, Israel insists the ceasefire is still holding. That's their position. Meanwhile, the other side is saying the exact opposite. It's a he said, she said on a catastrophic scale, and the truth is probably somewhere in the fog of war where it always is. Let's shift gears for a moment, because not every story today is about geopolitics and royal scandals. The Daily Express has an exclusive that's deeply uncomfortable and frankly infuriating. They're reporting that the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was reading reports about organized assaults on minors happening in hotels across the city, but publicly denied the existence of such groups operating in the capital. If this is true, and the Express is standing by it, then we're looking at a serious breach of public trust. This isn't about politics, it's about the safety of young people and whether those in power are willing to confront uncomfortable truths or sweep them under the rug because it's politically inconvenient. The Independent focuses on that Louvre heist, with a large photo on the cover showing the scale of the operation. The criminals used an extendable ladder on a truck to break into the museum and steal jewelry that's literally irreplaceable. But the main story in The Independent is about Britain's prison system. The union representing prison staff is warning about skyrocketing costs for repairs and maintenance in facilities that are falling apart. It's not glamorous, it's not clickable, but it's the kind of story that reveals the slow crumbling of infrastructure that nobody wants to talk about until it's too late. And now, my favorite part of the day, courtesy of the Daily Star. They're reporting, with what I can only describe as gleeful irony, that the British Film Institute, BAFTA, has added the famous live stream of a head of lettuce to the National Archive. You remember this, right? Back in 2022, someone set up a camera pointing at a cheap head of lettuce from Tesco to see if it would outlast Prime Minister Liz Truss. The lettuce won. 3 years later, it's now officially part of British history. The Daily Star calls it the easiest reason to smile today, and honestly, they're right. Not every day does a vegetable become part of the national heritage. There's also a curious image printed in the Telegraph, I believe, showing Zelensky arriving back from Washington wearing a particular kind of shirt. The paper hints at why he chose that look, but you'll have to wait for the next report to hear their full theory on that one. So let's take a step back and look at what we've covered today. Prince Andrew is under police investigation, the king threatened his own brother to force him out of public life, and the royal family is more fractured than it's been in decades. The Middle East ceasefire is collapsing in real time, with both sides blaming each other and no resolution in sight. A brazen theft at the Louvre in Paris saw priceless treasures stolen in 7 minutes. Trump had a heated confrontation with Zelensky, reportedly shouting and demanding that Ukraine surrender the Donbass. After speaking with Putin just before the meeting, the mayor of London is facing serious questions about what he knew and when regarding organized criminal activity. Britain's prisons are falling apart, and a head of lettuce is now a cultural artifact. It's a lot, and it's all happening at once. That's the world right now. Chaotic, contradictory, and moving faster than most people can keep up with. But that's exactly why channels like this exist, to cut through the noise, to connect the dots, and to make sure you're not just reading headlines, but understanding what they actually mean. If this is the kind of content you want more of, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and seriously consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's what keeps this independent, keeps it honest, and keeps me accountable only to you, not to advertisers, not to networks, not to anyone with an agenda. Your support makes all the difference, and I don't take that lightly. We're living in a time when the powerful are making decisions that will shape the next decade, and most of it is happening behind closed doors. My job is to crack those doors open and show you what's inside. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.